Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Humans and Wildlife Show. My name is Georgia Auteri, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Christian Sase. Christian, what are we going to talk about today?
Yes, hi everybody, and apologies for the late start, but we do have an exciting start. We have a little bit of technical problems, but we're trying to get around it. Well, today it's all about bears, and I'm absolutely delighted to have with us Jody Williams from the Asheville Bears. So, Jody, how are you?
Yeah, from Help Asheville
Doing great.
Bears.
I hope you guys are.
Jody, we just wanted to show your face because we'll probably go over to audio. It may be easier to you to talk to you directly over the phone, right? If you're okay. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to switch this off because you're coming in via Zoom, which is quite complicated, and we'll get you on the joining on the phone directly with Georgia, and we'll bring you in as a voice. Okay, so we'll see you in a moment. Thank you.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, and in the meantime, hello, everyone tuning in from YouTube and Facebook and Twitch. Andy, Cowley, David Howden, thanks for joining. So in a moment here, Jody will call me. Let me make sure my phone is ready. So I wanted to say that, as many of you know, little catch up while we're waiting, I was at a wedding this past weekend where I did catch COVID again. I would like it to be known, so everybody be careful. But a fun little teaser that we'll save to the end of the episode is that many know Isa Betancourt, who does the Bug Scope, the live stream about insects. And Isa and I did an interpretive dance together at this wedding where I am dancing as the dung beetle and she is dancing as a ball of dung that I'm rolling. And so if you stick around to the end, we will play footage of that, which is very personally embarrassing to me, but I think also,
I think it's cute. I saw it.
yes, I did. I watched it for the first time just moments ago as we were getting up. So I'm going to go ahead and call Jody real quick here. Let me just mute myself.
Yeah, whilst Georgia is doing that, a wonderful, warm July afternoon to all of you. Very nice to see you, Amanda, David, of course. I don't know if everybody's coming in and if you're coming in through which channel, because maybe we are just unlucky that we're having a little bit of technical issues here, because I'm not sure if Facebook is coming in at the moment. So as Georgia is going to try and connect with Jody, I will entertain you a little bit. So let me just give you some updates. So first of all, the good update is the weather is wonderful and there's a lot of wildlife. There's unfortunately also a bit of sad update, and one that I quickly wanted to share with you. And that is, I don't know if you remember Malala. Malala, the hawklet, the hawklet that I was able to visit on Vancouver Island. Well, unfortunately, Malala passed away, as I've understood just a few hours ago, by electrocution on a transformer of one of these medium voltage lines. That is really tragic. It's wow, it's so sad because the hawk was doing extremely well and was, you know, hunting its own things. Oh, you're on YouTube. That's good. That's good, David. So it's probably a problem we're having with Facebook too. I don't know. It's just a little bit of technical issues. But anyway, so that's what happened to Malala, right? Yes. Oh my God. Yes. So it's a big shock. I just learned that about an hour ago. But I just, sometimes you really have to, as difficult as it is for me, I have to share this devastating news with you too about the hawklet. Yeah. So, yeah. From anyway, Georgia, I think we have some problems with Facebook. I don't know what.
Yeah, well, so sad to hear about that story, Christian. What an unfortunate episode. So go ahead. I have Jody here on speakerphone. So
Okay.
Jody, can you say something? Can you test?
Yes, ma'am. I am here in you fine, and I can kind of hear him too, just a little.
Okay, you can kind of hear Christian just a little. Okay, so and everyone, could you please let us know if you can hear Jody okay?
Yes, Jody Williams from Help Asheville Bears. I hope everybody can hear me.
Yeah, and so Jody, what is it exactly that you do for your job? So you're a bear behavioralist, and you were talking earlier about like having to answer bear calls and stuff like that. So just give us, a little bit of intro about what you do and what Help Asheville Bears does.
Well, we try to protect the black bear from all illegal activities of poaching and the illegal trapping, which they do for their part sales, to sell their paws and gallbladders. This is something we did not know. I was studying bears for years before we actually started Help Asheville Bears. And it was started because of a bear named Peaches. She was a first-time mother of 3. I'd known her for years. Our community and my family had known her for years. She taught us a lot about bears and their behavior. She would literally nurse 10, 12 feet from my porch as long as we were quiet and didn't move, and nap on my property, swim in my rainbow trout pond. She was here daily. And it's just a beautiful area right here for bears to pass through as I back up the federal land and it's protected. But she went missing in July of 2019, and she was gone about 3 weeks. And when she came in, she was missing half of her right leg, front leg. She looked emaciated. Her 3, they were just little fat balls. So they had been nursing, but she had not been eating. That very same day, we went over my parents, my brother Alex, and we saw a second bear missing the opposite front limb, not even a mile from my cabin as the crow flies or the bear travels. And that's when our father, Colonel Scotty Morgan, he's an 8-year POW from Vietnam, very well-educated man. He's never wrong. He's just very good he's very educated. And he said somebody's trapping bear in our area, and it'll take a reward to figure out who's doing it. Well, we started the Facebook page thinking we were going to catch maybe a neighborhood trapper. We didn't even know about the bear part sales at that time. And when we started it, the community and just came together. Reports started piling in about all the bears in these 2 counties right here that I'm on the border of missing limbs. There's 19 just in these 2 counties, and we have a total of 37 and spread out a little further. But we have identified a family, 2, that have been poaching bears and trapping bears for over 3 decades and selling their parts. We have caught other 2 using rewards. Colonel Morgan and his wife, Mama Carol, sponsored the rewards. We have investigators that work with us, military, law enforcement, and a few of them retired whole life. They know this. It's exponentially grown. We're almost at 300,000 followers now. The public support from our followers has been outstanding. It's just we fight for the, people started wanting to know about the black bears more on the educational side, and that's kind of my forte a little bit as far as behaviorism. I'll get if a HOA or a school or a community center wants to come talk about it. Education is the key to coexistence.
That's a very informative message, Jody. Thank you. And just for a little bit of context, everyone, I've been sharing these pictures, which are all from the Help Asheville Bears Facebook page, which Jody mentioned. And a lot of these pictures are from, I presume, based on the looks of it, from the Asheville area. But Help, and so for those who don't know, we do have an international audience. Asheville is a city in North Carolina, which is a state on the east coast of the United States, sort of south central east coast. But Jody, as I understand it, and Help Asheville Bears, they're not limited just to helping black bears in that area. They actually help track down poachers and respond to calls about bears. They help bears in the United States, but also all the way up into Canada, Alaska. So they really travel all over with to help black bears, which I think is amazing.
Very true. And we were in Wisconsin recently, just about a month ago, locating a bear that had a 330 conibear trap on its right paw. We wanted it located so that the DNR could trank it and get it off there before it loses its paw. Unfortunately, DNR of Wisconsin did not want to do that. They wanted to use a barrel trap, and honestly didn't have them in the best locations of where we have satellite cams up still to this day and monitoring the area. But a black bear with a big metal trap on its paw is not going to go into a baited barrel trap, a big old steel trap. It's not going to. And that's not just from my words, that's from other wildlife veterans' words too. We also respond to injured bears. There's not a whole lot we can do on the injured ones if they're dead. I call thinking very quick so that the poacher doesn't come by and remove its paws or gallbladder. If it's not dead, we want to make sure that that bear is not suffering. We do want to establish a badly needed bear rehab for the state of North Carolina. They currently take a few orphan cubs, but they don't help any bear over a year old, which are most of the ones that have been hit by cars with broken legs, hips, pelvis, jaws, and all these bears could be helped and then re-released back into the wild. Just North Carolina Wildlife has to approve it, which they have denied us twice so far.
So some of these stories you're sharing are really interesting, because I actually didn't know that bear poaching was so prevalent in the United States. So certainly some of the issues Jody is describing, I think there's human wildlife conflicts in terms of like bears getting into people's trash, especially when it's been left outside for pickup or something. Could you talk to more about like but you also mentioned that the poachers will sell body parts of the bears they catch. So could you share a little bit more about what's driving the poaching?
Well, the driving the poaching is just, sometimes there's just evil people, but most of the time it's for their parts, specifically the paws and gallbladders. Those are the two items that sell for the most. And it's very prevalent. Anywhere bears or any other kind of wildlife is, they're being poached. And we don't know, we fight for the black bear. That is our love. But we put rewards on any types of cruelty against nature. We've had a veteran had his service dog stabbed with an arrow, not shot. Somebody walked up to it and so we put a big reward on that. Alligators, bald eagles that have been shot, you name it. And we caught some people, and some we still have. And poachers are hard to catch. But yeah, there is, when you speak bear conflict, we don't have that in Asheville area as much as other places. They do get into the trash here. I'm constantly preaching about securing your trash properly, having a bear-proof trash bin, all those things, but some people refuse to do it, and that's bad. It's bad for the bear. Luckily, wildlife doesn't just shoot a bear for getting in trash. It's usually people that do that, and that's when we come in and get them in trouble for doing that. And removing bird feeders, that's one of the biggest thing I think that any bear advocate preaches is the bears don't, the birds don't need bird seed this time of year. You need to remove drink that sugar water. And until winter, the bears don't need to get in trouble, because if you're sitting there with your bird feeder and you're throwing deer corn out, well, the deer don't read that deer corn. Neither does the bear, the raccoon, the possum, anything. You're feeding wildlife. So you can cause issues with that when it goes up to another person's house looking for that bird feeder, and for some reason they fear bears, and then they shoot them. We've caught people in that. So securing attractants of any kind is priority.
Jody, you were breaking up a bit, but I think
we can hear. Yeah, we get the message. You're breaking up a minute for a second, so maybe we'll give it a second to clear the signal. But yeah, what I'm hearing there is basically to be careful about when and where you put out bird feed, basically, like what time of year. And I mean, obviously, if you're in an area with bears, then the bird seed will potentially attract bears, especially if it's left out regularly where the bears can get used to it and things like that.
Yeah, Jody, I've got a question for you. Jody, I've got a question for you. I hope you can hear me. It's starting really at the area of Asheville, which is North Carolina. So just for those of you who don't know, and I don't know the states that well, although I travel quite a lot, but it's from Atlanta, it's more or less northeast, right? That's where you go, right? Because Atlanta, I think everyone would know. But coming now to the Asheville area, so it's very interesting. You've got a very well organized action going on there in Asheville, which surprised me at first, because I wouldn't have thought that such an initiative would start in Asheville. Then I searched a little bit and I found out, because this is all about wildlife and human interaction, that the bears in Asheville, I don't know if this is true, but the report said the bears in Asheville are about double the size than normal black bears. Could you comment on this, please?
Is it because they're getting so much food there? No.
No, not twice the size. Some of them are a little bigger than what you would see in other places in the country, but where they're the largest and twice as big as the black bear normally is down in Plymouth, North Carolina, down towards the coast. We're in the mountains, in the Blue Ridge Mountains, the Appalachian Mountains, at the other end of the state. Down at the coast around Plymouth, North Carolina, they have the densest population and the world's largest black bears because they eat year-round because of the crops that are grown down there.
Wow, I had no idea. That's so interesting. And yeah, just another little comment on Asheville, for those wondering, is Asheville is a place in the United States. It's a city that, although it's not a huge city, it is definitely highly associated with people who love being outdoors in nature. A lot of people there spend a lot of time outside hiking. There's a lot of waterfalls near there. And it's a little bit of a hippie town too. It's very associated with music. Okay. Yeah. And actually,
a bit like Nashville, maybe?
Asheville with an A.
Yeah, I know, but that's why I was thinking of Nashville,
Tennessee. Oh,
yeah,
the different, well, yeah.
I was just thinking of music, that's why.
Like the longest running city drum circle, for example. I was actually living in Asheville my first summer when I learned how to handle bats. That's where I spent my first summer working with bats. So it's it's a very it's a city full of nature loving people, even though it isn't a huge city. And so it makes sense to me that someplace like Help Asheville Bears would develop in Asheville and then grow and be able to spread and build capacity to the point where they're helping bears all over the place.
What about Canada? I'm just curious because I'm Canadian. I'd love to know. We know there's a lot of bear hunting in Canada. Could you just comment on that? Also, U.S. citizens going through Canada, maybe into Alaska and so on. How that something about that, please.
Comment on what? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Oh, maybe, do you want to repeat that, Georgia? Did you hear what I said?
So, yeah, I didn't quite understand the question either. Do you mean people moving into Canada?
No, okay, let me start again. What about bear hunting in Canada? How does that compare to the US? Because I'm in Canada. And second of all, I would also like to know what it is like in the state of Alaska, because Canadians have access to Alaska, and then of course you have a lot of Americans traveling through Canada into Alaska. I would just like to know how all that compares.
I understand. Well, from what I understand, up in Canada, they also have a spring bear hunt, which is sad because that's when they have their cubs and have them out and about.
What?
Down here, it depends on the state. Every state wildlife department has different rules. Like New Jersey had a spring bear hunt, but they were trying to cancel it through activism. North Carolina does not have a spring bear hunt. We only have one in the fall. So each state is different. Most states you can only what they call harvest one bear per hunter. But you got a lot of people doing more than that down here. So that's the poachers right there. But each state is different. So I can comment on North Carolina and maybe a few of the other states, but each state is totally different. But most do not have a spring bear hunt because that's when moms are out with their cubs, their coys, COY, cubs of the year. And you never know. They could kill a female that has cubs hidden up in a safety tree and them not know it if they're not educated enough about black bears.
Yeah, and so for context too, like one reason we have a question, why the hell do people have to hunt bears? I mean, some of it I think is certainly coming from the conflict between people and animals that was described before. So I've been I was at a park once in North Carolina, a city park, where people were having a cookout, and a black bear just came, scared the people all scattered. It walked in there and it just took all the food off the grill and ate it. Because they've been so, just because of how things have been managed, they've gotten bold and used to being around people sometimes in a way that isn't helpful for the people or the bears.
Well, that's a big argument right there because, first of all, you should never run from a black bear. So everybody scattering like that was wrong. What I would have done is taken an empty water bottle or some kind of noise maker and scared it off. That's all you got to do. Black bears are timid. As far as people saying that there's more bears and they're coming closer to humans, Asheville is an urban bear area. It's very unique to anywhere in our country or Canada. We're used to seeing bears. We coexist with them. They come through our yards, our playgrounds, everything. But most people know what to do and know just to let it be. And if you don't have any food attracted, the bear's just going to keep on moseying on because everybody has to remember this was their land first. And as big as Asheville has grown, especially in the past 10 years, their territory is dramatically being taken away from them. So what do we expect them to do? They're going to come through where those blueberry bushes or apple trees or where they learned where food was, and now there's not because somebody's built that whole mountain up and taken away their territory. So when you're seeing more bears, and it's also, this comes from Ellie Lamb, who is awesome, another bear behaviorist and educator. When you see bears in neighborhoods and coming closer to homes, it's not because necessarily they're even coming for food or trash. It's safety. Because when a mom or a young one or a mom with cubs, they come closer to neighborhoods to stay away from the big males and all the other dangers, the hunters that are out there and past dogs. North Carolina's state dog is the plot hound, and that's what they use to hunt these bears.
Yeah. And to be clear, like a lot of the work that your organization does, the problem is that these bears are being hunted illegally. And so a lot of what you're doing is helping to catch poachers that are illegally going after these bears and not even often killing them, just leaving them maimed in the wild. So could you tell us a little bit more? I found this flyer that you have that offers, $10,000 US dollar reward for information leading to conviction or halting of anyone operating in the bear part trade or selling of bear parts. And also a $5,000 reward for, illegal trapping bears. And it says that you've paid $80,000 US dollars to date for tips that people gave that helped leading to capture of people that were illegally selling or capturing bears. So yeah, could you tell us a little bit more, I guess, about what that aspect of your work looks like?
Well, that $80,000 needs to be updated. It's a lot more than that since then, and it is to stop poaching or the sales of the bear parts. The hunters are not maiming the bears and leaving them out there injured. The hunters are killing the bears. The poachers that are doing illegal trapping, that's why we have the three-legged bears. These are only the bears that escape. So according to wildlife, 7 out of every 200 bears escape a snare trap. So if let's just round our 37 number off to 35 and use that as our equation. So if 35 of them escaped, that means 1,000 of them did not. They're not trying to take one leg. These bears are escaping traps, and that's why they're maimed out there. The only time a hunter is going to leave one out there hurt is if they have a bad shot with a rifle, which that happens. Happens in all hunting, actually. But the poachers are the ones we're after, and they do a lot of them on the black market, and it goes for Asian medicines. The parts don't always make it to Asia. We got lots of huge Chinatowns in some of our cities. But
So
yeah, our rewards are for that, and we do put rewards on other animals, but it's to stop, to make the cessation of poaching stop.
So Jody, where do these poachers, even get bear traps from? Where do you even get this from?
Oh, excellent question. Did you hear it, Jody?
Especially because of the things we fought for since our inception. We tried to get, we have a petition that's almost reached 300,000 signatures, one of the largest on the change.org ever. And it was to ban Amazon from selling bear traps, jaw-style traps, bear, all that. In the very beginning, Amazon reached out to us and said that Jeff was aware, but he never did anything, like with any more communication. But what they have done, first, they silently removed all the bear traps, which are illegal to use anywhere.
Yeah.
It's not illegal.
Yeah, usually Amazon, there's certain things they won't ship to certain states because they're illegal there. And if bear traps are illegal, an illegal way of trying to go after bears, you would think that they wouldn't be selling them. Yeah.
They were. And but we got them removed off their platform, and we also got all leg hold traps and snares pulled off their platform. We've also got dicks to pull their bear traps off because, again, they're legal to use but not illegal to sell, because they say they sell them for decoration.
Oh, interesting.
Got them to remove all that. So that's a big thing. They removed that from their platform. So we got all those traps. Amazon was the largest supplier of traps in general for over a decade. Now, see, where they messed up was they had a bear in India. It was back in 2016, I think. It's a video on our Facebook page. It's called Rose the Bear. And she was a little cub. And she was the victim of a snare trap. She lost half her limb. This little cub had to learn to walk on her nose. It's a very heart-wrenching video to watch. But Amazon of India was shown this, and they removed over 400 items off their platform, but only in India. They did it nowhere else in the world. Even they knew then what was going on. And now, we've shown them documentation of all the bears in Asia, because snare trapping is very prevalent there for the bears. And we've also shown them all these 37 bears that are missing limbs from traps, mostly around here in these two counties I'm at. And they did remove everything. They still got attractants on there. And to us, Amazon should make recompense also to all these bear rehabs out there that are taking care of these three-legged bears, and also to other wildlife rehabs, because there's tons of wildlife gets caught in traps, people's pets. We've shown so much documentation of owls, eagles, foxes, anything that's been caught in traps, and a lot of documentation on people's pets. Dogs and cats that get in these traps, and some of them don't make it, but some of them lose a limb. And it's just a cruel, archaic thing to do. Darwin called out trapping in 1853. He said if men of education knew what went on a trap line, they would never condone it. And he compared it to cockfighting and dog fighting.
Well, and I do believe there's maybe some ways, at least in the US, where you're allowed to use snare traps legally, like maybe for smaller animals. But in those cases, there was, if it's legally done, there's usually a rule about you have to be checking the trap once a day or something like that, very regularly. That way animals aren't being struck.
That animal can be dead by the time you check the trap.
Yeah.
So trapping is not a good thing. I think anybody that does it is archaic and evil and cruel. It's a lazy person's thing. The fur does not go for hardly any money anymore. Nobody wants to wear fur anymore. And it was the colonization of America where we about destroyed off everything.
Mm-hmm.
That's why people say, well, there's more of these animals than before. Well, no, there wasn't. It's everybody killed them off before, but now because of conservancy, things are starting to react.
Yeah, Jody, what about the brown bear or the grizzly bear compared to the black bear hunting? Can you comment on that, please?
I don't know a whole bunch of anybody who would go hunt a brown bear or a grizzly or a Kodiak. I know they do. That would be what I call a trophy hunter.
Okay.
I don't like trophy hunting. If you're going to eat the meat and live off of it, that's how you do, then you should have that right because it is legal. But just to kill something just because, you're a big bad man because you killed a bear.
Yeah, right.
Well, I mean, first of all, black bears are very timid. Browns are a little different. They're a whole different species. And a grizzly and a Kodiak is a brown. They're just a subspecies of. I just couldn't imagine going hunting for a brown bear at all. I mean, I don't even really hunt no more. I used to hunt deer, and it was to eat. I've never hung anything on my wall and never will. But it's when people go out here just to kill something to say they killed it or they're killing it for its parts to sell, I just don't. I think that takes a certain type of evil person.
And polar bears? Sorry,
Go ahead, Kristen. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just curious as a Canadian, of course, also about polar bears. Do they actually do something with polar bears too, or is that? I have absolutely no idea. That's what I'm asking.
Anything. I haven't put a lot of research into polars. Other than that, I think they're beautiful creatures and absolutely passive.
Sure.
But I know a lot about anybody. Yeah, I know more about the Russian army befriending polar bears with evaporated milk than I ever would polar bears.
Wow.
That's funny. I think I saw a picture of that on your Facebook page, but it's not one of the ones I downloaded to share. But yeah, if you want to check out the Help Asheville Bears Facebook page, has a ton of pictures of bears. But you should remember to search Help Asheville Bears, because if you just search Asheville Bears, there is a gay men Facebook page, which I found you do not want to go to. Yeah. So, I mean, maybe you want to go there, that's fine. But probably if you want to find the black bears, then don't search that.
One second,
we're a whole different kind of bear people. That is, bears in that world is a whole different thing. And that is I have seen that site, and I've gotten friend requests from that site because they think because I'm the bear man that I'm
you like
whatever.
it.
But we're about the bear, Ursus americanus, and that's what we fight for, and against any cruelty, whether it's or any other kind of wild animal, even those where you see those people that they build the little squirrel feeder, and once the squirrel gets over to the nut, they pull a string and launch the squirrel to the air.
That's terrible.
People don't respect nature sometimes.
So I'm curious, we talked a lot about different types of threats, especially poaching, but I'm curious, is roadkill a big problem for these animals as well?
Around here it is. I go on bear calls a lot. People speed way too much. They don't look out. There's some speed limit. There's some places that need wildlife crossings or a speed reduction. Hab has had 4 bear calls today alone on bears that were struck by cars. And, all of them have lived, but all of them are limping with one leg or another. And these are bears that could be, medically held and then re-released if the state would approve. But, yeah, we get a lot hit by cars or trucks, and we assume that too, but, a bear can fall out of a tree, believe it or not. I've seen it happen. And, they can get injured that way. But there just needs to be able to take care of these, or if they are suffering, you know, and immobile, then they need to be euthanized so that they don't continue to suffer. You don't ever want something to go through unnecessary suffering.
That makes a lot of sense. And kind of in line with avoiding suffering and doing what we can to reduce human-bear conflicts, what are your bird feeder recommendations? Because we've seen some different comments in the chat about taking in bird feeders at night. I know that you also mentioned taking in bird feeders during times of year where the birds aren't as reliant on bird seed. What would be your complete responsible bird feeder recommendations?
Well, first of all, removing bird feeders at night, you're halfway there because bears are not nocturnal. So unless you're standing guard and willing to scare that bear away from your bird.
Oh, you're breaking up for a second.
Hear me now?
Yes, yeah, there we go. So bears are not nocturnal.
No, bears are not nocturnal. They move 24 hours a day whenever they want. On hotter days, they will go lay in the shade or get up in a tree to get the cool breeze or get in a pond somewhere maybe. But bears are not nocturnal, so removing bird feeders at nighttime is only halfway doing it right. Bird feeders need to be removed until wintertime.
When they're most needed, yes.
And I hear that spring is actually, and in some degree, it might be unavoidable to have some conflict, because I hear that for birds, one of the hardest times of year is actually early spring, when they're trying to raise babies, but there's not a lot of food necessarily available yet. And I imagine that bears are also very hungry during that time. We have an interesting comment here from Eric Kuhn. In Pennsylvania, it's a law to remove your bird feeder if bears are present in the area. That might be the best course of action. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I can imagine. Go ahead.
If you live in bear country, your bird feeders need to be put up until winter. Flattened period. That's just, you can't just put it out and say, I hope a bear doesn't come through the neighborhood. We just need to be responsible. Nature has taken care of itself for many years before us. So there's need to be up. Herman bird feeders need to be up. I understand. I want to watch nature too. But there's ways you can make your yard or whatever property you got very animal friendly. I have blueberry bushes, red raspberry, black raspberry. I grow winter wheat that the deer love to munch on, clover. There's all sorts of things that can be grown. Personally, I have a rainbow trout pond not 15 yards from my front porch, and it's the only water source on this side of the mountain. So that alone brings in the wildlife for it to drink out of, and some things get in it, like the bears and the raccoons.
Yeah, when we've had past episodes on trying to build a better backyard for wildlife, and I think that's a really great sentiment, because I know a lot of bird feeders have seeds, for example, but a lot of birds don't eat seeds. So if you're planting like native plants, for example, that are attracting wild insects, bugs that are pollinator species, a lot of birds love to eat bugs, and those are often the first species, the first birds to kind of drop off once places get developed. It sounds like having a kind of a holistic approach, if you have, a little bit of land or whatever, that can be really beneficial. Or even just having flowers in your window garden, I'm sure, can be very helpful.
Exactly. Yeah, use your space to its maximum potential. Luckily, I have acreage, lots of it, and I even leave logs and stuff laying around to rot. And the bears will dig into them and get their ant larvae and different grubs and whatnot. When they flip the log over, lo and behold, there's grubs and larvae down there, and there's worms that the birds come eat. Sometimes I just go out and kick a few logs over to expose the ground, and that's been covered up for a few months. And then I see the birds just attack it and start getting in, and then I do it another couple months. And I got videos of bears just digging into logs up here. And there's a way to do it naturally and, like you said, holistically. And I'm going to have to go back and watch that episode now. But I believe in keeping things as natural as possible. You know, I'm probably going to have to plant some more apple trees because this year my apple tree is hardly producing because the bears and the deer tore it up.
Is that right? Wow.
Wow. Yeah, they were like, give us those apples. That's funny.
Jody, I mean, talking about your Asheville organization again and comparing it to other organizations across the US, are there any other large organizations that are doing this as you are or with whom you collaborate?
We do collaborate with a lot of organizations, and each one has their own approach and things they fight for because it's of their region, where they're from, you know. Who I first started collaborating was Mike McIntosh up at Bear With Us, who him and his wife Ella, they're in Canada. They run a bear rehab. It's not something you can go visit, but they save between 80 and 100 or more bears a year and re-release them into the wild. And another one of their main things is education. We use a lot of their materials and stuff and share their stuff all the time to educate people on bears. And I consider Mike one of my mentors, who I've learned so much from. There's also Bear Warriors United in Florida, Bear Defenders in Florida, the Black Bear Bureau in New Mexico, the Bear Group, the Bear League, and all of us have slightly different missions, but with some of the same common goals, such as educating the public about the black bear and how it's not this dangerous creature you've seen in Hollywood and TV and the media, especially nature documentaries. You know, nature documentaries will show a black bear roaring and growling. They don't even make those sounds. That's not in a bear's communication at all. I know every sound a black bear makes, and those are not one of them. That's dubbed in by lions and tigers and even dogs just to get you to watch.
Yeah, that reminds me of many eagles being shown to have hawk, squeaks of a hawk or so. It's just I mean it's mindless, but you're right. But I mean let's talk a little bit about the dangerous side, because people do fear, and I'm probably one of them. You know, I wouldn't want to encounter a black bear. I've seen them before, but I wouldn't want to encounter them directly. I mean, surely this has happened to you, and what is the behavior that you recommend?
Their behavior is very timid. They'll typically run from a human if possible, or you might not even see them. You might be on that trail and they're little forest bitches, and they'll just hide behind a tree and you won't even notice it, and you just walk by a black bear. They don't want to. They're social creatures amongst themselves. They're no different than us. They have different personalities, different moods. They're highly intelligent. Their intelligence rivals that of the great primate. I know bears here on my property that know their name.
That's wonderful, really.
And I've known them since they were a little cub, and they still pass through. And I'm that weirdo that talks to the animal I can.
And what about bears with mother bears with cubs and so on? I mean, you could come across.
Oh yeah, I always hear don't get between the mother bear and her cubs.
And everybody fears that because that's actually the biggest myth about black bears there is.
Okay.
There's never been, since the year 1870, there's been 68 fatalities from black bears. So everything you do in your life, getting on a plane, driving down the road in your car, hanging out with that dog is more dangerous. Dogs kill 45,000 people a year. You know,
45,000.
More
Interesting.
people die from taking selfies than from a black bear.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I'm always amazed at kind of how people sort of glance over dogs as, you know, they kill a lot of wildlife just like domestic cats do. They are really damaging to people as well. Not that I don't like dogs, but you know.
Horses kill more people a year. Horses kill on average 22 people a year.
Well, horses, horses I do think are very scary too.
True. the myth about mother black bears. Now,
Mhm.
there's got to be a little bit of common sense here. You don't go up and approach a mother with cubs. That's
No,
just
of course
common
not.
sense.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
if she has cubs doesn't mean she's going to attack you. If you get too close, she'll warn you first. She'll
Yeah.
bluff charge or huff and stomp the ground, or she'll send them cubs up a tree and leave herself.
Or, I mean, yeah, I will say it does seem a bit difficult to accidentally get between a black bear and her cubs. I mean, I've seen black bears many times in the wild, and you always see their butts running away is really what you see. They know about, they've heard you in the woods, and they're hightailing it. And I mean, there are, to be fair, I think any animal, if habituated to people enough, if they get used enough to having people around, they will lose a bit of that fear response, just like the bear in the park I was describing. But that's all the more reason to be giving the bears their space and a daily sort of practice, not putting out bird feeders like we talked about, because that encourages them to be around the house, get used to that human input. So that would be my 2 cents.
But it's just the simple fact that a black bear mother with cubs is not just going to attack you because she has cubs. Now, it's 70% more likely to happen with a brown bear. That's a whole different species. And that's a lot of the reason for any brown bear attack, brown bear, grizzly. But it's just the myth about mother black bears are going to attack you because of cubs. And people throw around the word habituated and conditioned a lot, but those are two different things. Totally. One is bad, one is not so bad. Bears will coexist if we will. And that is a quote from Mike McIntosh, just to give him credit for that. And they will. If you leave them alone, they'll leave you alone. But they don't want to mess with you anyway. Some of the younger ones, like on their first year out away from mama, the yearlings, they'll be a little more curious and to see what you are because they haven't learned what a human is. And that's where we need to be responsible. If it's approaching, then you need to, I would scare it off personally because I'm not afraid. But you need to make sure that bear doesn't have contact with you, even if it's you just talking to it and you backing away slowly and getting out of the picture so that it can just move on. Me personally, I would scare it with an empty water bottle or empty trash bag. And if that didn't work, then I'd step up the hazing from there. I've used tasers before just for the sound. And I've used air horns. This is a big urban bear area, though. That's why they have the North Carolina Urban Bear Study here in Asheville. And that's a big thing. That's where they collar them and all that, track their movements and whatnot. But we've also had National Geographic here twice. And in the issue finally came out this last month. So the latest issue on there, it's got a Native American, and it's either Native American or a First Nation person on the cover. And there's an expose about Asheville. It's about urban animals. And they did stories on coyotes, raccoons, and other cities, but they came here to Asheville for the black bears.
Oh, I heard about that piece, actually. I've been meaning to check it out. That's so cool.
Yeah, Corey Arnold was here, and he is just such an awesome person and photographer, filmographer. He captured a bunch of beautiful images. He even captured images of one of the three-legged bears nursing her cubs last year.
Wow!
And that was a beautiful moment.
Jody, you've also I've read that you put trackers on bears to see how their behavior is. Do they actually migrate, at least to some extent, or what do we know about?
We don't put the trackers on that. That's the North Carolina Urban Bear Study that does that.
Okay,
that is the program at North Carolina State University in conjunction with North Carolina Wildlife.
Okay.
Personally, I don't like it because it's not just the collar around the neck. They also put 2 bolts in the ears. They also pull a premolar tooth while it's cranked out, and they put an inner lip tattoo and a belly tattoo on the bear. It's highly invasive, but they are studying their movement, where they go. The premolar can tell a lot about their diet. It tells their age. If it's a female, it can tell how many sets of cubs it's had over the years. They do a cross section. It's kind of like a tree, you know, it has rings. Tell from the calcium deficiencies what year a female has had cubs.
That's fascinating. Yeah, I mean, having a baby as a mammal is very high energy investment. Yeah, to the point where you see depletions in nutrients and calcium and stuff that show up in your teeth.
Yeah, and it's bears have their own. I hate when people start mentioning population control. We need to kill more because we need to get the population under control. Well, first, I'm not saying kill humans, but I think we need some population control.
I would agree. So
many of us, and we keep making harder and harder impacts on wildlife. But bears have their own population control built in. See, they mate in the spring, but they have delayed implantation, so until the fall when the blastocyst attaches to the uterine wall. And then, you know, they're not going to have their cubs until January, end of January, beginning of February. And the number of cubs they have then is determined by how good the food supply was that past fall. So if it wasn't a good acorn, hickory nut, you know, all those kind of nuts year, they're going to have less cubs. But if they're getting fed more by the trees or even by humans, they'll have more cubs come winter or come January. You'll see them in the spring. Because they're so small.
Yeah, there's kind of a sort of automatic abortion that can happen in many animals when it's not in the animal's interest to have populations that exceed the available food supply, because then everybody suffers. And so, yeah, there's different ways that many animals have of regulating their own populations. Well, thank you so much.
Just like they grow to the size of the aquarium.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes,
you cut out for a second, but yeah, fish is like not growing more than the size of the aquarium. Well, thank you so much, Jody. We will leave it there. We're coming right up on the hour right now, but if you're interested in hearing more about what Jody and Help Asheville Bears does, just go ahead and search it. They have a website you can find in an online search engine. They also have a Facebook page that's very active. So just once again, if you search Help Asheville Bears, they'll put up their logo there. And you can donate to them as well. And that money that you donate goes towards, at the very least, it looks like it goes towards providing reward money for hints leading to the capture of poachers. Jody, anything else to plug before we let you go?
You know, it takes followers. It takes people to be on our page, help us. It's not necessarily about donations. It's about giving the animals a voice. And when I go speak at things and I say, 300,000 followers, they know they need to pay attention because lots of people are watching it, what these people are doing, what these politicians and different groups are doing. That being said, please check out the page. Our website is about to get a serious upgrade, which I think everybody will love. You will be able to see all the documented injured bears. You'll be able to see what we're doing, different programs. And just want to thank y'all sincerely for helping us bring awareness to this issue, the poaching, and just our wonderful black bears. And if you guys will text me your address, I'll send you up a couple of stuffed three-legged.
Oh my gosh, that would be amazing. I would like that. I would be so excited about that.
Just text it to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, thanks for joining us, Jody, and taking the time to speak with us. I learned so much, and I know all of the people listening did as well. Christian?
Many thanks, Jody, and you got the most wonderful dedication, really. I think that really came across, and may you have many, many more followers. As you say, it's not so much about donation, but the understanding and really about conservation and balance of wildlife. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank y'all so much.
Thanks, Jody. Bye.
Bye.
Well, thank you so much, everyone in the audience land, as always, for listening. We did have to block one troll today. Just a brief little announcement on that. Our policy is that we certainly welcome people disagreeing with us, but if you're not disagreeing in good faith, if you're just stirring up trouble, We certainly don't want any of that happening. We want good faith discussions where we all seek to try to understand each other. So I think like this comment and question was like, oh, I don't tell you not to hunt bears and eat them. Like I can have for breakfast whatever you want. Well, as we discussed right around 31 minutes in the show, if you're hunting bears and eating them, that's very different from illegally poaching them. So we are against illegal killing of animals, certainly at a very bare minimum. And yes, as promised, people have not forgotten, we will share this dance, interpretive dance. So for context, I was at my friend's wedding these past few days, and I had a very good time there. I'm actually at the bride and groom's house right now. I'm cat sitting for them while they're on their honeymoon. But at their wedding, a notable dance took place. This recording of it that I'll share is actually not the best time of the dance that we did. I would say there were definitely like better times when we did this dance at the wedding. But Isa Betabug, who many of you know, was also at this wedding. She runs the Bug Scope, which is a live stream where she looks at different bugs, oftentimes under like a microscope, so you can really see them up close. It's a very, very cool show. I suggest that you check it out. But Isa and I were both at this wedding. A song came on where, people weren't really feeling it. A lot of people left the dance floor. But Isa and I, we really want to keep the party going all the time for this wedding. We want our friend's wedding to be like the best possible. So we started doing interpretive dances. We took like suggestions from the people just watching around the dance floor who were like, we did everything from an interpretive dance of sending a letter in the mail to...
Come on, Georgia, show it.
Gun beetle. Okay.
On.
Here we go. I'm stalling because I'm embarrassed. But here we go, everybody.
Let's see once more. Come on.
Okay. Yeah, we were really kind of off our game there. Issa didn't start rolling until then someone walked in the way, but here. All right, I lost my balance a little bit too. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. That's the Human and Wildlife Show. Don't forget to follow Help Asheville Bears wherever you can, and also follow the Humans and Wildlife Show. Thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you. Bye till next Wednesday. Thank you.